So I have a new private Pulsechain endpoint up and running. So the whole stablecoin narrative is something that's likely going to catch fire. And then once PDI gets anywhere near $1 and then hits $1, that's when a whole new narrative for PDI and utility actually floods the market. So in my opinion, that's exactly why PDI will hit $1, because once it hits $1, that's whenever its utility actually comes into play. You can actually swap it into SDI, make more yield, be able to utilize the Spark ecosystem, which is literally only not even available for US citizens. So I haven't even been able to actually utilize it. I've just been following it. That all seems like it was by design. Like a couple months ago, we saw 150 billion DAI get minted, which was 10x more than USDC or USDT combined. Wasn't burnt. I have no idea where it went. But yeah, in my opinion, that's exactly what Richard Heart has the ability to do. He's pretty much able to leverage entire liquidity pools, which is why he used V2, because V2 allows you to pretty much, the liquidity pool is one token, so it's just one solid token. So when you're using V2, it's just easier to leverage and make that big of a trade to just literally swap out entire liquidity pools and eat the profit. And I believe he's likely doing that in a privacy layer, which is what he deserves to do. And anyone that has any kind of proprietary technology on Ethereum or any chain for that matter should have the right to do. And likely why Pulsechain has an actual privacy layer built into it. Kind of the nuts and bolts of the theory anyway. It's definitely been unfolding little by little and right in front of our eyes. Now we got what? We got Maria hosting events for these guys. It's making its way. And the way he talks about it, it's like ethics versus vulnerability. It's actually, he does a really good job. I just listened to it before I came in here. It's the first time I listened to it. He literally points out the reason he goes by the name Maria, the reason he named it Atropa, the reason he named it TSFI was to get the attention of people that knew and that would recognize those names and to buy into and to support him. We know that there is a real Maria. She runs Summer Finance, directly connected to MakerDAO and Aave and Spark. Pretty wild. We'll see how it unfolds, but seems like we're in the right place. I mean, in idiot's terms, Richard Hart front ran the SDI idea, knowing that stablecoins would have an insane utility. Front ran arbitrage bots, the narrative of that by copying and pretty much pasting all the exact same contract addresses. Worst case scenario, he front ran the idea. Best case scenario, he's working alongside them. Yeah, and has someone like Maria, well, James, in his back pocket, which is insanity in and of its own. Not back pocket, but living and breathing the same ethos that he does, and that brings us all here. Literally sacrificing on-chain value for the sake of others. Which is what we've seen him do. We've seen James do it. And that's just a big underlying ethos from the Hex community that's kind of feathered and tethered away, which is hilarious to me that these guys are fighting over tits and scraps whenever everything that could make Pulsechain be great, they're flooding it, which is absolutely mesmerizing. One of the biggest narratives you could possibly build is the ability to have a stable coin that pumps to $1. I don't know of a bigger narrative that you could possibly fathom as far as building a chain, not having to do much work for that idea to be built, and then on top of that, have an entire ecosystem that is, in my opinion, a decentralized MakerDAO built on top of that narrative. People are sleeping on the whole concept, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people, it'll continue to unfold. Maybe not exactly like I've laid out, but it might kind of border along the side, the lines of, well, this is crazy, but it's just like it almost just makes sense. Like, why would he mint 22 billion DAI? Why would the minting stop? I mean, all the stuff that Nine Iron uncovered, and Vibra, Verse, all these guys, they went another route. They looked into wallets, security. They did all that work. My theory and my stuff led me into more of a relationship status. So, like, what was the connection between MakerDAO and Richard Heart beforehand? How much RAT BTC was he holding? How much DAI was he holding? Could he control votes? Did he get into MakerDAO early? These are all things that are highly likely, but extremely speculative. But when you go with a name that the founder of Spark, who has tweeted about Hex multiple times in the past, but then deletes everything off Twitter except for one tweet that says, "Love me some Hex," has gone by the name Hexanaut even while he was an engineer at MakerDAO, just gives me an inkling of maybe there was more to it than that. And the fact that, and then as soon as Richard Hart took $400 million of sacrificed funds while being investigated by the SEC and threw it into a brand new protocol without a worry, without a warning, as soon as it's released, and this thing releases a week before Pulsechain drops, code's already, right? Because it's forked onto Pulsechain, but the actual release of it didn't come till after Pulsechain's mainnet release. A lot of coincidences to assume that Richard was just a dumb billionaire copying an EVM chain rather than a smart billionaire moving his money to where he knows it's safe. In my opinion, that would likely be the case of any billionaire that has the brains like Richard Hart. He wouldn't just simply copy and paste Ethereum and leave himself open to the same vulnerabilities that he just escaped his assets from. How much Bitcoin he still holds, I mean, that's all speculation, but in my opinion, he doesn't have to throw another dime into this ecosystem. He could literally, probably, and likely just provide liquidity between multiple assets from Ethereum into a privacy layer, and literally likely peg everything quickly. I mean, if you can even go look on the Arkham map of the value of Pulsechain, before Pulsechain's mainnet launch, it was valued at 60 billion and 40 billion and 50 billion dollars. It's pegging around that area. The day Pulsechain launches on Arkham, the spike goes straight down to 100 million and has flatlined ever since. It's a very unique chart, very interesting chart to see all that value there. And what is Arkham reading? Why is Arkham reading the value of a not alive blockchain and showing its value at 20, 40, 60 billion? I mean, it could be anything, right? But in my opinion, there's this more to it. The same reason why he added Hex to the liquidity pool, well, into the farming system. He needed a connection onto the blockchain to leverage that utility that we likely can't see. Same thing with Pepe. These things lasted for days. It seemed like an onboarding tactic, or it seemed maybe he was being malicious in a way. I believe he was just permanently marking the blockchain with that availability. So there was other things that we just can't see likely occurring because he made that connection. And yeah, I mean, it is definitely a mystery, but the fact that some of the stuff continues to unfold the way that it unfolds, it's pretty awful. Another thing I found interesting in Maria's words were he was talking about vulnerabilities, and he was talking about, because this stuff that I'm talking about can be used for good and harm. And one of his terms was, it wasn't absolute negligation of risk or harm being attacked. It was obfuscation of such. So it's like the minimal risk of this stuff being utilized for the majority of what it's used for is actually good versus bad, because it could technically be used for bad as well. So that was a very very strange use of words coming from James in that video that I was listening to as well, because it seems like he knows as well. Like the way that he does his contracts, he uses symbols and certain like he does unique things to the names of his contracts. I'm not sure why. I believe that is another underlying potential thing just to pay attention to as well, because it could, whenever this stuff could be uncovered, it could technically be used for bad. I would assume that's just, I mean, that's what decentralization is, right? You kind of putting your money in a risky asset that, especially at the very beginning of something, you almost kind of want it to have those scrapes and bruises and busted lips, because you want it to be kind of tried and true. Like what we've seen with LUSD, some of the other P copies, like these guys went off and got an Oracle, and then someone's still coming in and built literally building a fucking liquidity front end and then liquidating troves. And I'm not super in tune with what's going on over there. I just know that, there are people that are exploiting certain parts of this ecosystem because it's decentralized, and it is likely probably the most decentralized chain I've ever been a part of, just because of the way that it has grown and is growing, and the actual opportunity huge. The risk is just as much, right? The more risk you put into something, the bigger the reward, or vice versa, right? So and I feel like I'm near the cutting edge of it, but I mean, I'm no dev. I can't decipher a bunch of things. There are things that I'm good at doing, and one of them is, I guess, laying out and delivering information in a decent way with a decent attitude. So take for that as you wish. But yeah, I'm going to continue to investigate what's going on, continue to look at it. The fact that it came from him, and I just haven't looked more into it. It just might be something that's kind of off the whim, or it's just not a big deal. But the use of words and everything else that I've just kind of been talking about for a few months now, and some of these other guys have been talking about, I don't even know. I guess it's been a year since. I think it's been over a year since some of this stuff has came somewhat to light. But yeah, it's been pretty wild, to say the least. But I think more and more over time, it'll continue to shed light over what exactly is happening on Pulsechain, why it was built, what it was built for, who it was built for, and who it was built by. I think that is something that Richard likely took into heart, and probably has stepped far enough away to where he has the ability to actually become something decentralized, rather than just everything else. Because like, if you think of BSC, you think the owner. When you think of Ethereum, you think Vitalik. When you think of Arbitrum, you don't think of the owner. So I think, I mean, maybe in my opinion, maybe that's his ultimate goal is to, you know, the chain. But it's always good to have some sort of a leader, especially like someone like him. But it's hard to explain that to onboarders that haven't seen him and they've been here a year. But maybe that is just something in his back pocket as hype, or it really is a way for him to just kind of separate himself. The onslaught that will likely be coming to this chain. But we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, man, I think it's definitely some exciting times for Pulsechain, and yeah, going to bring it over to Pulsechain, and then just continue to ride the wave of things that are happening on Pulse. Just, you know, being an advocate for the community, explaining things, breaking down things, just hanging out in the VC, walking people through liquidity pools, the whole 9 yards. Just stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis inside the community. Just provide value for people in a unique way. So, because yeah, there's no one talking about this stuff. Pretty wild, in my opinion. There are people talking about it, but it's whispers. James definitely stepped out into the realm and kind of into the fire in a way with the movement that he's done, kind of, you know, scooping up a bunch of e-hex, you know, looking like this outside savior when he's likely working with the guy. But I mean, yeah, it's again speculation at best, coincidence at worst. Maybe they met each other on the blockchain, and that really is a sweetheart story. I just don't feel someone like Richard would just leave that up to chance. He could. It just, meh. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And instead of, you know, we had this whole conversation yesterday about different bells and whistles that people strap onto stuff and call utility, and it's really a lot of it just fluff. And like, so it's awesome to see projects, you know, really just dial into the liquidity bonding and trades and volume and the bots. It's pretty awesome that we already have Skull as an example. Like, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger organically with more and more. Honestly, he's attracting more and more whales all the time, and a lot of good, helpful. I don't know, just good, good community. So, and then working with HODL too is like, you know, the one other good example, I guess, of working cross chain, and I think it really is like kind of taking what James is doing almost in a way to the next level. Hopefully, we can work it out as well as a Tropa, but
The case for some people, but it is kind of what it is. There's all I can do is uncover and drop what I've found, and hopefully some people go out and continue to do the research. Like I literally stood on the shoulders of Vibra and the verse I had no idea what these guys were talking about for the longest time, until they spelled it out and they were, you know, kind of you know, watching their videos being like, holy shit, there is something to this. And then just doing my own little weird way of going about disclosing and uncovering it my own weird way. If not kind of blowing the lid off of some of it by giving it out to y'all. I would assume most people that have the ability of using these things would would likely use them to their benefit forever before they have to disclose the ability to utilize it for anyone. But there always is going to be that one person that leaks the code, and then, you know, just like anything else, the bar of entry becomes lower and lower because other people are able to get into it, and thus, you know, the real people that are trying to do real good and do decent stuff in this space are the ones that start thriving, because good just conquers, just trumps it as far as the community standard is. So whenever good does good, it actually just it infests more good to happen. It's just, you know, it's part of the part of life, in my opinion, and well, in my experience, that's just like, what do they say? Hurt people. Like the whole Tang Gang thing, like the whole thing was, it just sucks, man. It's just like, oh man, it's like, you guys got to deal with that. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I have nothing against Tang Gang. I thought what they did was absolutely hilarious. If not, you know, it's their own weird way of showing, hey, man, this is how they go about business. I mean, it is what it is. You can take it for what you want, but it's, people are talking about it, and that's what they care about. That's all that matters, as long as people are talking about it. I don't know. It's just a weird way of going about promoting your community. But I mean, hey, man, if they have a chip on their shoulder because they felt like they got over by RH, so be it. At the end of the day, this stuff's going to do what it needs to do, and it doesn't need any outside influence.
You listen to what James says about, like, you know, I love how he started off his presentation talking about the ethics and
Bro, I never
and
thought of it
Richard
like
and
that.
that focus, and then, you know, and then vectors of attack or ways that we can be, you know, I forget the word, but manipulated anyway. And so he thought out this whole process, like, and he's gotten to the point where he thinks he's got it, you know, totally solid, bulletproof, basically. And so, I think a lot of people really hold him in high regard for that kind of planning and understanding. And in my mind, Richard's like exponentially beyond that. Like James, like you said, he's been in since the beginning. I mean, before. I mean,
And
kid
then, yeah,
basically started
you use the
studying
word.
cryptography like when he was single digits. But same with Richard, and like Richard's a lot more quiet about it. It's and has a lot bigger plan, in my opinion. And I'm really glad though that James is Maria 414, whatever you want to call him, is so vocal about what he's doing. He really is, I think, trying to help the community in the chain, because the way he set it up, he doesn't need to sell it or market it, at all. Like he's really giving us an education that will benefit him too, but that I think really is totally necessary for understanding the ethics and keeping a focus on what the point is here. For a lot of us, it really is all about the tech, because it is money tech, because money is foundational to everything. So this is a huge opportunity, and it's awesome to see more and more people like taking the lead and spreading the knowledge, because I think Richard like could only do that so much himself, especially now, the way he's virtually silenced. But he built so much more, or gave us so much more opportunity than I think like 98% of people understand. I guess a lot of the whales are pretty silent about things. They just have the information and do what they need with it. But so in another way, like it almost doesn't even matter. That's why like the bickering and the shit like that, like it's not even worth my time. Like I would love to see less bad actors and people get along better, but like we're not going to stop any of that by fighting it. We're just going to fuel it. Like Richard's words really burned into my head. You focus on the suck, you get suck. You focus on building and wealth and non-suck, and that's what you get. So I guess it does take all kinds too. So, but like I think we're sitting on a literal gold mine, like that we've just begun to just strike the veins of.
I mean, that's what I feel like, and I feel like I've uncovered so much shit. I still feel like I don't even know what's going on. So I can only imagine someone listening to me that has never heard about Pulsechain and being like, "Good God, what is he on about?" Yeah, man. I mean, there's a reason why MakerDAO is quote unquote changing the name of all their stuff and becoming more memeable. I mean, they're a utility token and
Exactly.
likely going to be a utility chain that's going to be a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake that literally mints wrapped versions of DAI, which is probably and likely the most utility you could possibly ask for out of a token, and they're still turning into something more memeable. That's part of their end game. It's just easier to onboard instead of having to explain crazy tokenomics and big utility, and there's no expectations within a meme coin, which is why Teddy Bear is so unique. And he goes. I was getting into the part where he was kind of explaining more about it, and I kind of fast forward through it. But how he saw how he saw Teddy Bear and how he saw what the utility of it versus the Doge and all that. So yeah, man, there's definitely a lot of exciting things occurring on Pulsechain. There's a lot of stuff that we're uncovering every day in our chat. There's a lot of. I'll drop some more tools and some more links. There's some liquidity pool tools. You can type in any contract address or anything, and it pulls up every single liquidity pool on Pulsechain for you. So there's a lot of tools that are being built, a lot of utility being built. Just a lot of speculation, of course, but the more speculation, the higher return, in my opinion. The riskier the asset, it's always something that Richard's always kind of laid the groundwork for. These illiquid markets are dangerous, but when handled in a proper way and controlled by benevolent actors, you can absolutely send different things. You can extract more money than what goes in. Pretty much, that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, it can come off harsh, but that's how these assets work, right? They're built and they're hedged against the dollar. They pump with each other. It's part of the game. But understanding that and being able to get into an ecosystem that literally pumps like it's illiquid, but as it pumps, it builds liquidity. It makes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, like PDI and the entire Tropa ecosystem. It's a weird word to use, self-fulfilling, or the whole phrase self-fulfilling prophecy, but that's honestly, in my opinion,
Chartois.
the only way you can explain it. What would be
Chartois.
what would be a 2-word description of what RH is traded for us? And what is
Free
expected
market.
of us?
I couldn't hear me. He was breaking up. What did he say, Torin?
He said 2 words to describe what Richard Hart has built. And I said a free market.
Good answer.
Communal
And
collaboration.
Communal collaboration. That's also true.
yeah, that's the whole idea of value is like what we decide it is. That's why we really need to dig in and make use of all the tools that the really advanced users are. We have this kind of conversation all the time. And those VCs and rigs VCs too. It's like even the politicians are coming out like, "Oh, we know crypto," and it's like, no, you really don't. Like even some of the 2 cycle or 8-10 year experts are scratching the surface on like just what a lot of this tech can do. When you look at like how what people are doing to create value literally out of thin air, and then and increase the value for everyone at the same time. It's pretty insane. Like I mean, what we were talking about Sailor yesterday, like he gets criticized so hard, and he's literally just keeps building his own floor. I mean, you look at how much he's up right now; it's incredible. But he's got a really good understanding of the tech and from a long term patient perspective. So those guys win. And there's a lot of them that are doing that. We just never hear about them. They're not on Twitter. They're not telling people how they're doing it. They're either really busy or they're doing their time by themselves. But it's slowly we're raising the IQ across the board. That's what attracted me to Richard and Hex ultimately. Like I got that vibe like James was talking about, like the ethical side, but I do geek out on the tech. So it was awesome to see like people really educating themselves and helping each other, not getting wrecked. It's so easy, especially right now.
Yeah. And usually the more pain you go through in the markets, usually the more you're rewarded. And we've literally had our necks stepped on in Pulsechain. So we'll see if we have that rebound. And I think we're gonna see it. I think it's gonna be this forever down token, and then all of a sudden the hockey stick. Whenever I heard James talk about the kind of charts that he's like, I was like, you sneaky mother.